Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, warriors for freedom. Good morning to all y'all out there. Remember yesterday I started off with my testimony, I call it testimony one or my story one, and I basically shared with you that I wanted to share a part of my personal story with you. And so I continue that today, and some of it you'll see I read it because I'm trying to be really specific and make sure you get a lot of my story instead of me just running on and on, you know what I mean? And so you might see me read that and look away from the screen, but that's okay. Today is an amazing day to be alive. I want to share a part of my personal story with you, and I'm going to continue. Yesterday I left off with she was raised as a pastor's daughter. My father was literally a man of the world. My mother was a sheltered church girl and still a virgin, a match probably not made in heaven. So I'm going to continue from there, okay? Starting at this point, they were supposedly married sometime between 1956 and 1958. Prior to my being born, Mom was 20 years old at my birth. I said supposedly because none of us kids have ever seen a marriage certificate, and we would hear rumors that my father was still married to his ex-wife, and as a result, we were bastards. You know what bastards is, right? Anyhow, hence my first exposure to our family, to my family secret. My cousins were in this regard very mean to us and my siblings. And in this regard, they would say, and in this regard, they'd say, hey, Grandma says your mom and dad are not married. But when questioned by us kids, my mom would always insist that they got married in the United States in Annapolis, Maryland. That's where I was born, that they had eloped. She described this as the best years of her life. 2 years on yachts and traveling with a lot of people. What a price to pay, however, I would think in my mind, for a lifetime of hell, as we used to call it as kids, until I understood the reality of relationships and growing up, okay, and becoming a man. To this day, we have not discovered a marriage certificate other than the one in the Bahamas, dated in 1987, that my older sister and I found. My mother refuses to have a conversation in this regard, stating that we were being disrespectful of my dad to bring that up. Okay, although he has now passed away, a few months shy of 100 years old. That was my dad. This, however, was the beginning of the creation of what I now call family secrets. This was also the beginning of my family's paradigm of secrecy, our mantra. What happens in the family stays in the family. We are great religious pretenders, and my mom has always covered for my dad in his good and in his bad. I guess you can call her a stand by your man woman. Here are a few of the memories that I feel shaped me and my perception in life as a child growing up. My dad would call my second sister, who now lives in Germany, black and ugly, saying she can't be my child. Yet she looks like my mother. That always confused me. His mother was African and a daughter of an African chief who was captured as a slave. She was born in 1874 and lived to be 101 years old. She died in 1975 on Mother's Day. She passed away in 1975 on Mother's Day, as I said. My grandfather was Scottish, and ironically, my dad loved his mother to death, although she was one of the blackest women I knew at that time. Yet, he was caught up on color, as we would say in the Bahamas. The result, my sister has never dated a black man that I know of. All of her boyfriends and 2 of her husbands have both been German, one from East Germany and one from Frankfurt, West Germany. She has been gone over 30 years plus. My sister is the closest person I know who behaves, as far as I'm concerned, we always say in the family, like Michael Jackson. Her makeup is always 2 or 3 shades lighter than her complexion. I blame my dad for this. For years and years, I was angry at him, what I call messing up my sister's hair. She would even say my dad was not her dad because she was too dark to be his kid. Here's another. Although through junior high and high school, I was on varsity track and field, basketball, soccer, softball. My father never came to not one of my games. He never saw me play. He would only hear people talk about my exploits and see my mom read about me and my pictures in the newspapers. He never once acknowledged my accomplishments, other than to tell me of my cousins that had made it to the Olympic Games, and that no one ever makes money or creates a life wasting their time chasing after a stupid ball. I am sure that affected me. Again, if that was not enough, I joined the art club and was so good, the art instructor used me in his advertisements in the newspaper for art classes. My art was displayed in the local banks, and my father never once came to look at them. He would insist, why would I waste my time on sissy stuff like that? What I needed to do was to learn about real work, and then he would take me to the farm to weed with the Haitians, or to the boat to work with the other Haitians that worked with him on the mail boats, who worked for him on the weekends. And when he knew I had other activities, I had to do his work first. And if time was left over, walk 5 miles to get my classes, my art or music classes. I would do it and somehow believe that he would like what I did. His rejection just motivated me even more. I had this thing, if someone said I couldn't do it, that was exactly the thing I would do. Once I accomplished it, I would lose interest and motivation. I had to prove you wrong. At 9 years of age, I could not swim, and my father took me and my brother, who was 4 years younger, on the boat with him, and some of my cousins and uncles. And you know, we are Lockharts, right? And the subject came up that they didn't think my brother or I could swim. Of course, my father's ego said I would never have a son who can't swim. Me, Captain Victor Lockhart, and he screamed at me, asking me if I could swim. And I said a little. This seemed to anger him. So he said, well, we will find out today. Oh boy, you will learn today. All Lockharts can swim. You are from 5 generations of seamen from Scotland. I'm thinking the conversation was over. Relaxed, and we're sailing out of the harbor where the big cruise ships come into the Bahamas. We call it out on the bar. About 200 to 300 feet of water, I think. At least that was in my head. All of a sudden, with no warning, my father grabs me by the back of my shirt, me and my brother, who is only 5 years old, and he throws both of us while the boat is still moving into the ocean, screaming at the top of his lungs. Now you boys will know what it means to be men, to be Lockhart. Swim, swim, swim for your life, and maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll come back for you. All I remember was hitting the water and seeing the boat wake, leaving me in the water. It felt like I was in outer space, just blue and black everywhere. I experienced fear I never felt before or since. I could not even find my brother for a while. And then I just saw him come up and go back down twice. And I started kicking my feet to come for him, not even thinking about me, who couldn't swim, and that I had begun swimming. But somehow I had begun swimming. I just remember saying, God, please help me. All of a sudden, I could swim. And I realized that one of my cousins, the best swimmer in the family, his name is Horace, a diver, was in the water holding my brother up, and my brother refusing to even try swimming. He was determined that he would not swim to please my dad. That's how much anger he had. And he would rather die. To this day, he is still like that. I kept doing what I used to call the breaststroke, and I heard the engine of a smaller dinghy coming towards us. And as it reached us, my cousin threw my brother and I into the boat, and I also pulled myself up. My cousin was cursing and calling my father crazy, saying, boy, don't you know your father has thrown men into the sea and left them just there for disobeying him? If he says you could swim, you could swim. This was the beginning of me knowing the beast that my father could be. From that day on, I feared him, but then I also loved him. Okay, so in that story, there's a lot of wounds going on. There's a lot of hurt going on. There's a lot of pain going on. And that would not manifest in my life until I became more grown. And as I got married, different fears would come up into me. Different anger and resentment was buried deep within me. But also I realized that God was doing something in me. So tomorrow I'm going to share a little bit more of my story. But as I said yesterday, this lays the foundation for what became my addiction, what the fears that I struggle with, the woundedness that I experienced. Now I want you to look in your life and see if there is any pain, if there's any hurt, if there's anything from your childhood, especially if you're a boy, from your father that has affected you and affects every decision you have ever made since. You see, a lot of times our addictions, whatever they may be, are attached to these sense of affirmation, validation, to the power figures that are over us. And it took me a lot of years, over 40 years, to begin to understand a little bit about what's going on inside of me. So today, like I say, I just don't teach you the things about the brain and all the scientific stuff. I have this experience. I have the pain. I have the hurt. But guess what? God can restore. And if he can do it in me, he can do it in you. So I want you to have a great day and be blessed. And I'll share some more of my testimony with you tomorrow. Have a wonderful Christmas, and know that you can rise above the circumstance. You can become the champion warriors of freedom that God has called you to be. I'll see you later. God bless you in Jesus' name. That's it. Period. I'm out.